Hello, hello. It's Thursday night. That means it's going to be the Hammer and Nail show. I'm Jack Hammer. To my side here is my partner, Jesse Naylor. Jesse, you have a different background tonight.
I do. I got the 49ers stuff behind me tonight. My wife is going out of town, so I got the number one dad sign right up there because I'm going to need it this weekend, Jack. I'm going to need it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been doing that. I've been kind of doing that same boat for a while now because I don't know if you heard, but I wasn't able to go down to the Rams game after all because of a COVID close contact for one of my kids. So
Oh,
I've had them all for usually I have them every other week, and we're going on 2.5 weeks now. And uh, yeah, and then also everybody's cooped up in the house because they can't go and see their friends. So it's been a little bit of an adventure the last week. So
oh, I
uh,
bet. I bet. Well, at least everybody's healthy. That's all that matters.
yeah, that's true. And they did sit with me on Sunday and watch the game, which was nice. And we watched a bunch of football Sunday night, and we watched the first episode of the Joe Montana show. At least my oldest one and I did yesterday, which was a lot of fun for me. So um, jump into it though. Talking about Joe Montana, one of his biggest comebacks was a Monday night game against the Rams down in Anaheim back in 1989. The Flyers were trailing. He had a couple of 90-plus yard touchdown throws on quick slants to John Taylor, and they came back to win that Monday night game. And I think they ended up clinching the division that night as well. I think that's the night that the Rams owner, Georgia Frontiere, was actually on the field when the 49ers ended up coming back and taking the lead that night. So uh, let's jump right into it. That's where we should start off. The 49ers having that big comeback on Sunday against the Rams. What were some of your thoughts about that game?
Well, the first thing is it genuinely felt like two whole games. That game felt like it took forever, and it was a tale of two completely different halves. And I like looking back on it, obviously during the emotion of it as a fan, like you're just so riled up and nervous and frustrated and happy, and like everything goes through your mind. And looking back at it though, I think it was the most poetic game that they could have ended on. And the reason I say that is the season was exactly like that game, right?
Yeah.
They started out bad at 3-5. They've since, they finished 7-2 down the stretch. So it's like they start out bad in the game, they finish strong. We've talked about, Jimmy G's ups and downs, and I've said in the past that this season more than 2019, even though he's the same player basically, what's happening is the team wasn't as dominant in other areas like the run game and the defense. And so because of that, the team goes more with his performances. If he performs well, they win. If he doesn't, they lose. And so they've just had those ebbs and flows. And Jimmy did that as well, right? Like he started out really bad and then he finished really good. And so I just thought it was so poetic, the way that the game went. There was so many times where you're like, it's over. And even for the 49ers, I thought when they tied the game and then they got the ball back after getting a stop, I'm like, oh, momentum's all San Francisco's. They're going to go score again. They're going to go up 7 and this game's over. And then they got stopped. It's like, no, you're playing with my emotions here. So, yeah, I just thought overall that game, first of all, fantastic game, hell of a way to end the regular season. And adding to the intensity is your scoreboard watching and seeing that Atlanta is clearly going to lose. So by the time this game is hanging in the balance in the fourth quarter, you already know it's win or go home. And the 49ers may not have known that. The Rams may not have known that, but we knew what was on the line. And so it just made that game so much more intense and hell of a way to end the regular season. Hell of a way to end. I mean, the season's going to be a memorable one for sure. So many ups and downs. My first year being on YouTube and covering them and talking about them, it's just been a great ride.
Yeah, no, it was. I agree with a lot of what you said in terms of the roller coaster that this game was, and I like the analogy to the season and the whole as a whole. That I kind of tried to write that out a little bit with my post game article, and I've since written it a couple of different times. But it's tough to really put all that into the written text. At least for me, it is. But the way that game played out. If you if you follow my Twitter, you look at that and you see when the score 17-0 and Jack's tweeting out this game's over. you know, and shortly after, you know, and then shortly after he says this game's over, he's telling you to put in Trey Lance because, you know, because Garoppolo has the turnover there, right? The bad throw.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's funny because it shows the at least for me, it shows the emotion of the game and the way that it was perceived in real time, watching it without really being able to see everything, right? Because you can't see everything when you're watching it on a television like you can when you're either there or, you know, watching it after the game with the all 22 footage and so on. um, because it was a rough start. The Flyers defense struggled really, you know, the first two series. The third one, I don't really put it on them as much as I do the special teams for putting them in the position that they put them in, with that kick return all the way down to the 19 on the punt return there. So, you know, to see them come back and be able to battle back, the was it was classic Shanahan 49er football, right? They get the ball and they score right before halftime, so they doesn't really doesn't feel like a big deal because they're still down by 14, but then they get the ball coming out after the half and they put points right back on the board. And, you know, they score, you know, between the last time the Rams had touched the ball and the time they get it back, their lead's gone from 17 to 7. And that's a big change for them. And all of a sudden now Matthew Stafford actually has to play the second half. And uh, for me, I took away that from that game that Matthew Stafford played like the Matthew Stafford everybody was ripping him to be when the 49ers were you know, possibly going to get him, right? You heard all the things about Stafford and everything, and that's who he was in the second half of that game. The Rams needed him to make a play, and he did 3 times on the one drive, but the rest of the half he couldn't do anything. And the way that game played out for the 49ers couldn't have played out any better. Just and on top of that, you know, you look at the guys who made plays down the stretch. You know, Juwan Jennings getting the touchdown to tie the game up, and then making a couple of big plays in overtime. You know, kind of an unsung guy who's really stepped up over the second half of the year. Ambry Thomas making the interception to seal the victory. You know, a guy who even Kyle Shanahan said wasn't going to be. He didn't think he was going to even see him on the field because of the way he looked in training camp and so on. So for him to come back and be the guy that makes that play at the end of the game, that whole thing, the way it played out was huge. And in so many ways, it also was very reminiscent of the game in 2019 and the season finale up in Seattle when the 49ers had to make a stop right at the end of the game to seal the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, it's really cool how everything went because it just gave me a lot of confidence in this team as they head into the playoffs. Right now, just all the adversity they went through in that game, from losing their punter, Juszczyk having to hold, Gold having to kick, bringing in Darquez Denard off the street, and he's playing nickel. You've got Johnson moving from nickel to safety during that game. It just, everybody just stepped up in such a big way. Like, when I look at that game, a lot of times it's like, hey, this person or these people won it for us or lost it for us. That was the ultimate team win right there. Every single person, Colt McKivitz, everybody contributed and helped that team win that game. It was really cool to see. It was beautiful to see.
Yeah, and it did. It required everybody on the team really to come through in some way in order to seal that win. So it was just a huge game for the 49ers, and now they're on uh, to Dallas, which is going to be fun to see. You know, this game that's going to be coming up here against the Cowboys on Sunday. But we have a lot. You know, before we even get to there, though, still kind of. I know you and I had a little bit of back and forth following the game with regards to the quarterback. I might as well just get into that here since we're here.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give your thoughts on the way that Garoppolo played. I know you gave him a B minus, and you had asked a question for my mailbag, which I didn't address in the mailbag, but I'll use it here as we go through this answer.
Yeah. No, I'm curious to see what your grade is. Yeah, I gave him a B minus. I think that uh, it's hard, like, as a fan, to not give some emotion to it, right? And give extra credit for seasons on the line, games on the line, right? Even though technically everything counts as the same during that game, the emotion tells you the end of the game means more. And so for him to go down at the end of that game, like if that was just looking statistically at it, if that was, I don't know, week 14 and that happens, I'm going, that's a C minus game, C game, whatever. But I had to give him extra credit for those things because thumb hurt, game on the line, all those things. Like he brought his big boy pants. There's no doubt about that. And so I just felt like he really did play about as bad as he could in the first half. Like it was ugly. And it's funny because everybody, even guys that I know are staunch Jimmy supporters, their timelines were like, get him out of here. Shanahan, this is on you. Like everybody was going nuts. It was crazy. And it was bad. It was really, really bad in the first half. Then the second half comes around and the running game finally gets going. The defense, I thought they played really well in the first half. It was just like they would just give up that one play, that one play, that one play every drive, and that would end up in a score until finally the tide turned right there at that 3rd and 1 where they got the sack, huge sack of Stafford, and from that point on, that game turned. And Jimmy and the offense marched down the field. They got their 3. That 3 felt like 7 right there. It really did. It was huge. And then they come right out and score again. And then they have a drive where they don't even have to throw the ball but once with Deebo Samuel. It's just everything just got going. And so for me, again, if that was a mid-season game, I'm saying C plus, C, I don't know, C minus somewhere in there. But because of what was on the line and everything that happened in that game, I have to go with a B minus. The stat line, turnovers, 2 turnovers, could have had 3. The third one, even though it wasn't a turnover, and thank God it wasn't because the Rams are in scoring position, it killed that drive. First down, fumbles the ball, that drive was dead immediately. So those are things that did happen. We can't act like they didn't. And so for me, was it perfect? No. Was it a heroic performance? Yes, but overall, I give it a B minus.
Yeah, I would agree I agree with you from the standpoint that it wasn't a perfect performance. That's for darn sure. For me, watching the game live, I would agree with you that it was a B minus. If I didn't go back and watch the game afterwards on the film, if I was only basing it off of emotion of what I saw live, I would say probably a B minus. And I say a B minus because it felt like the first half felt like it was so bad. And I think when you go back, at least for me, when I went back and I rewatched it, what I saw was there's definitely some mistakes. I'm not going to put it on him. But part of the reason I think it felt like it was so bad was because the 49ers the offense didn't get the ball until 7 minutes left in the first, they only had the ball for the one series in the first quarter. And so they didn't have the ball that much, and so I think that kind of added to it as well. They weren't on. You were seeing the Rams on the field so much that it felt like more had happened for the offense in some ways, right? I mean, the first series was okay. I mean, he's a little off on the throw to the running back. I think if he lays that out in front of him a little bit more, I know you and I talked about that on the Twitter. If he puts that out in front of him a little more, it might be there. At the same time, the back shoulder is kind of there as well because he's not totally clear. It's kind of in between, and if that DB, that linebacker does a really nice job of getting his hand in there to break it up. So it's kind of a mixture too. It's not like it was a drop by the receiver. It took a good defensive play to stop it, what have you. I don't blame him on the fumble. I mean, of course, yes, I do blame him because quarterbacks have to hold on to the ball, right? But quarterbacks fumble the ball more than any other position group on the team. So that situation, you've got a left tackle who gets beat, and then you get the tight end who gets beat, and then he gets hit. So, it's tough to blame him solely for that, but I would say, and I put this on there as far as a little clip of it. I said, it's boom, boom, and he needs to get that ball out because he does have the guy on the right side. Everything about that play kind of leads him to the left because that's where he's got the over route. He's supposed to have a guy in the flat and the guy deep, but everything's covered over there. And plus, you had Huschek fall down, which I don't think he saw. I just think he was stuck in there, and then what happens is he's got the pressure coming, and so the only reason he fumbles, he gets hit, which is bad, right? He fumbles but he takes his hand off the ball because the tight end is blocked back into him, so he's pushing him away. Now he's holding on with one hand with the jacked up thumb, and the ball gets knocked out of his hand. So it's a bad play. You mark him down for it. I mean, and then the interception again. It's there, and the interception, it's there, and he's going to throw, and again the left tackle gets beat, and so when he's throwing the ball, he's turning into the guy. He never even gets the ball out. So it's you've either got to eat it there or just throw it away like into the ground, right? But it's one of those things. That's a tough one. That's a tough call to do as a quarterback. So I again, you have to grade him down. I would overall give him a B, right? Come on, I'm talking in circles, but it was an above average performance. For me, it wasn't, obviously it wasn't excellent, so it's not an A. I don't think it was average, which would have been a C. I think it was
Right.
above average. I give him a B, probably right around the same grade that I gave Trey Lance. And I know that's going to sound crazy because one guy's started 40 something games and the other guy's now started 2. But the performance on Sunday was very reminiscent. Both those games very similar from the quarterback position. That's part of why I don't really have a problem with the possibility of moving on from Garoppolo to Lance next year. I've been saying it all year that Lance is going to be okay when it comes time for 2022. So I give him a B though. I felt like his performance was better than I felt, just like I felt like Lance's performance was better than I felt watching it live, if that makes sense. Because watching Lance live, I didn't like what I was seeing. But when I went back and I watched it without the emotion of the game and just watched it and watched the film, I felt better with what he had done to get there. He obviously had some issues and mistakes, which I pointed out, just as I would with Garoppolo. But I felt like it was pretty similar performances.
Yeah, I gave him. That's funny because I gave Lance a B minus the week before, so I landed in the same spot. And again, just looking at the numbers, yes, Lance, on paper had a better game, but there's so much that you have to consider. Like I said, when you grade, you try to just look at the game as is, but it's hard to do that, especially when there's that fan side of you and you're going, well, the season was on the line and his thumb was hurt. And you know what I mean? So you have I have to give extra credit for that. Like I do, like emotionally, I get invested in it. So
well, that's why the grades go up and down, right? And that situation is as you're watching it, because of the emotion that's invested in the game, and as a game of that magnitude, when they start off as poorly as they did, and you see what's happened in Atlanta, and that they need to win it, and they're down 17-0, everything gets magnified that much more than it would otherwise. But it was a I guess it was a gutsy performance. The fact that he was able to get out there and throw the ball as well as he did, was pretty good. I just the one that bugs me is the obviously the same that probably bugs everybody, but it's the interception in the red zone in the fourth quarter. That's one where he's got the guy open. He has Kittle open. It's going to be kind of a tight window to get him there, but he is there. You either need to make sure that you're going to get it there, or you throw the check down to Jennings, because Jennings is wide open on the underneath route, so that there's not that. But that's who Jimmy Garoppolo is, right? He's a little bit of he's not a gunslinger in the way that people think of a gunslinger, and as far as throwing the ball down the field. But he takes those shots in the middle of the field and tries to get the ball into tight windows and stuff like that from time to time, and that's where he gets himself burned. And that's about as bad as you can get in that situation, just considering everything that's going on.
Yeah, he's got a gunslinger mentality. He really does. And I said it before the season started. I said he's got a gunslinger mentality, but game manager skill sets. And sometimes that's not the best combination in the world. So, it is what it is. But he did what he had to do. We'll talk about the team going forward and some of our concerns and whatever. And he's going to come up again. But for that one game, I love that he was able to gut it out and do what he had to do to help the 49ers win the game. And what was really cool for me is after the game, that whole conversation that came out between him and Juszczyk, where they had that conversation before that was cool, man. Like, that's just the human element of it. Like, everybody knows, like, I'm not a fan of Jimmy, the player. I'm going to root for him as long as he's the quarterback of the team, because I want the team to win. But I can't wait for him to leave so Trey can play. But on the personal side and the professional side, I thought that was a really cool story. And it's got me kind of got me kind of pulling for him pretty good as an individual right now too, to be real with you.
Yeah, no, that was kind of a cool little story there, and it's funny because I think that's a little bit of an insight as to where this team's going to be headed down the road. I know you keep hearing people talk about Garoppolo coming back. You know, there was the thing with Greg Papa yesterday on KBR saying, "Oh, if it was up to me, I'd try to find any way to bring him back. You know, give him 3 years, $12 million a year kind of deal." I understand where Papa's coming from. I'd like to, you know, the Flyers are going to be in a situation, even if they do move on to Trey Lance full time next year as a starter, they're going to need a backup quarterback. So, what better backup can you have than Garoppolo? But you're not going to spend big money to do that. There's ways that you can make it work if he's willing to stay and make it work for everybody in terms of the 49ers also with reducing the cap number down to probably what they're going to spend on a backup or what you'd think they'd spend on a decent backup unless they're going to draft somebody to be that guy next year. I don't think they think Sudfeld would be the long-term backup for him. But anyway, I mean, that's one. And then you have this, I like this one. Thank you, that Niner guy, for the donation. Really appreciate it. It says, Jack, some booze money for you post COVID and dealing with the kiddos. I think 90% of the fans thought it was over. Great help from the 2020 and 2021 draft classes. Looks like players are developing, and I think that's a really key piece to it. And before we move on, and let me just throw this one up really quick because I know we had this as a topic, and it's a good point
Yeah.
right now to do it since it kind of leads into that. You know, is it a wasted season? And you and I kind of touched base on this a little bit last week, but like that Niner guy says right here, when you look at the way that this game went down, the 2020 and 21 draft classes came up big in this game.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely they did. And I've been pretty clear, at least for like what my personal expectations were, that it's either make the playoffs or play Trey Lance a whole bunch. Like one of those two things, and it's a good season, and I'll take it. And they actually kind of got both in the end, right? Because they didn't play Trey Lance a bunch, but they did make the playoffs, so that's a win. And Trey Lance coming in week 17 and playing the way he did
Mm-hmm.
gave everybody enough confidence that he can be the guy going forward, right? And a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't know if he's going to be ready sitting a whole year." And now that they've seen it and they've compared it to what they've seen from some of these other rookies, they're like, "Okay, maybe he can be the guy." Like we feel good, at least decent enough about it going forward to where there's some confidence and some swagger going into the offseason. And then you add the kicker of the playoffs. There's no way. I mean, if they hadn't made the playoffs, we I would still almost debate that it isn't just because Trey Lance did have that performance so late in the season. But making the playoffs, it can't be like it can't be a wasted season.
Yeah, I definitely don't feel like it's a wasted season. Some of exactly what you just said. I mean, if we just go back to even the 2020 class, because that's what the Niner guy says here is, you know, you start off with Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk has backed up his rookie season. He's actually been better this year. His yards per attempt per catch is higher, and so that's why he's able to kind of match the yardage output of last year with less receptions, is because his yards after catch has been higher. So, or yards per reception. So he's shown some improvement. He has 5 touchdowns on the year, and then you move forward to the other side of the Juwan Jennings. Excuse me, he's the other one too, right? Juwan Jennings was a 2020 draft pick, 7th round.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you remember early on in the season, I was lamenting the fact that they had let Kendrick Bourne go, especially when you're seeing what Kendrick Bourne was doing up in New England with the additional opportunities he was getting up there,
For sure.
and Jennings has made that issue for me completely go away with the way that he stepped up throughout as the years gone along. He's shown to be the guy, and uh, the one for me, and I tweeted this out yesterday though, is that the play in overtime when it's 3rd and 3 in the red zone, and they hit him with that little out, and they catch it, and it's a first down. And I showed that because it was the exact same play the 49ers ran in week 1 of 2020 in the similar situation, except for it was 4th down. And you see the difference between the way that Juwan Jennings runs the route and the way that Trent Taylor ran that route. And the reason that the Taylor one was incomplete is because Taylor looks like he's stumbling all over the field in order to even get into his route. He's basically leading the DB there, whereas Jennings runs a nice crisp up and out, and makes it easier for Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Because he runs his route correctly and is able to beat his man, and Garoppolo's able to hit him. And huge play for Jennings, and I really liked what we've seen from him. And he had the big a couple big catches there in that game, with a touchdown, obviously, and the long one, and he even had one there on the game time drive. I think it was the second catch of the drive. So he had two of them on that one possession to tie it up. But then as far as this class, now you're right. You've got Ambry Thomas. He makes look at the growth that he's had over this year. You've had Talanoa Hufanga. That you're going to be able to get some things out of him if he can stay healthy. And then the Trey Lance piece, obviously, that's the one that everybody was most concerned about, because you spent so much to get him, and he's a number 3 pick in the draft, and everybody's wanting to see him, and it makes sense because everybody, it's a new shiny new toy on Christmas. Everybody wants to get that thing out of the packaging and see how it looks, and they got a brief glimpse of him early in the season a couple different times, and then he had the start, and then you see his performance in week 17. And that week 17 performance, I agree with you. That I think anybody that was worried about the fact that he hadn't played all year, at least for me, it kind of wiped that away, because he looked like he'd improved over what he did in Arizona. And, you and I had this conversation last week, I think, on the show, where it was really hard for me to say that 100%. I think the Niners need to go with Garoppolo over Lance, just because of how good he looked against Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with the injury being there and whatnot. Even Lenore showed flashes, right? Obviously, yes. Mitchell, great. Lenore showed flashes. Yeah. Jalen Moore even had a game in there where he played well. I was a little surprised that he wasn't the starter over McKivitz. Obviously, they made the right decision. But when I heard that Trent's out, I'm like, oh, Jalen Moore's getting the start. Like, it was automatic in my mind, right? Mm-hmm. And then they announced that it was McKivitz. I was like, whoa, hold on a second. So, but even if Moore doesn't pan out, he's a late round pick, right? So it's not the end of the world there. But the only one really was Banks. Like, that's it. I mean, everybody else got run. Everybody else showed at least something at some point during the season. Banks and then Kinlaw. Like, those are the only two that I can point to and be like, I don't know. Got a lot of question marks going forward, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's one of them too, right? I mean, well, real quick before I go there, like the McKivitz Moore thing is funny, because you're right. Everybody's like, why isn't Moore starting? But when you look at we're talking here about the 2020, 2021 draft classes, those two, McKivitz was drafted right on the same round as Moore in 2020. I know that there was some things that they did with him. I think wasn't McKivitz one of the guys that got hurt this year, or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. I thought he might have been injured during training camp, but I think I'm thinking of the other guy who's a swing tackle, because I know the 49ers had released McKivitz at one point this season. He wasn't with them when they first broke camp, I don't believe. I think they signed him back to the practice squad about a week or two into the season. But he definitely had he didn't lose the game for him.
You're thinking of Justin School. That's right. There's Richard.
Yeah, I am. That's right. McKivitz didn't have a very good game. It was a pretty rough one, but when you all things considered, he didn't lose the game for the 49ers in the end, right? He almost did, but they got the ball back and they were able to redeem him a little bit, right? Because of the sack on third down that the series before. But when they got the ball back, right. It's funny because when they got the ball back, you're kind of wondering how are they going to do this? Because the Rams are going to be coming after him, because they know the 49ers have to pass, and they had him out there on the island, and he did a really good job during that from there on out. So pretty good deal there for the 49ers there. And then there's been a lot of talk on this one, and I've kind of just kept my mouth shut and shook my head about a lot of it. But who would you say the 49ers MVP is?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go a different direction. I think the obvious is like Debo, right? Like Debo. And I understand going that direction. I really do. But there was a call that I took 2 weeks ago. My guy, Eric Dane, and he laid this out beautifully and sold me on this guy. And so he basically said, what are the three positions that are the most highly drafted? And it's going to be quarterback, edge rusher, and tackle, right? Like those are the three most usually highest drafted positions, most coveted. And then he's like, well, what are the three positions that you usually pay for the most in free agency? or to keep those guys. Same thing. It's quarterback, edge rusher, and left tackle or tackle. And he's like, so why is it if that's the case, and you've got a guy in Trent Williams that's having arguably the best season a left tackle has ever had, is he not even getting considered for league MVP? And I was like, it's a really good point. Like, you kind of sold me on this one. So maybe not league MVP, that's a little far, but I'm going to go 49er MVP. I mean, this guy, I'll tell you what, it's not, at least for me, it's not a lot of fun to watch the fat daddies down there doing their thing. I'm not going to break down a lot of offensive linemen, but every single time I watch film, he just jumps off the screen to me. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's always bullying somebody, and he's just, you just set it and forget it. You put him over there, you help out the right side with Kittle, and you don't have to worry about Trent Williams really doing anything bad. He gets a penalty once every 5 games, and you're like, who? Who is that penalty on? Like, you're shocked that he just anything bad happened to him, right? And so it was nearly a flawless season. I gotta go Trent Williams.
Yeah, and I know that, and that's the name that I keep hearing come around about. So that's part of why I said what I said when we were opening this topic up. And
Yeah.
and Trent Williams is a very good left tackle, extremely important to what the 49ers want to do. They're better when he's on the field, but the 49ers MVP is Debo Samuel. They're not in this position, and you can make an argument for Trent Williams. The PFF, gosh knows they've been trying to pump that up and be that guy all year long, at least over the last month or so. But I would say that it's Debo Samuel. Debo Samuel is the guy who has energized this team from the time that they decided that they were going to start utilizing him in multiple ways other than just a wide receiver. Get him in the backfield more often and those types of things. From that point on, they've that's their 7-2 record. Their decision to get him the ball 8 to 10 times a game, using him in the backfield the way that they have and everything that they do, that's really what saved the season for the 49ers and really turned everything around, because they were missing that. They were missing the explosive element on their offense. Kyle Shanahan had talked about that. A couple of the other players had talked about it. I think it was Kyle Juszczyk that was talking about it. So they were definitely missing that. And when they decided to get him in there, they found that explosive piece that they were missing. And that's what they needed, because they didn't have Raheem Mostert. So it's Debo Samuel for me.
Yeah, I think, like I said, to me, I think Debo's the obvious choice, right? I just wanted to go a different direction. I really like how he laid that out on the call. I thought it was a phenomenal call he made on the show, and so I wanted to give him some credit for that. But I know how important he is. Before the season started, I told Grant that I really wanted them to sign Patterson, because I knew that if Debo missed any time, that it would hurt him bad. Like, as soon as he left the offense, even in 19, if he was off, or in 20, like, this offense was so different without him. And I figured, okay, if they get Patterson, then he can be the guy that can come in and do a lot of that in
Mm-hmm.
the absence of Debo, and they would be okay. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the obvious answer is Debo. I just wanted to throw some love to Trent Williams.
No, and that's fine, because that is like I said, that was a name. Trent Williams was a name that a lot of people were talking about, and it was being thrown around, and uh, it makes sense because he's had a heck of a year for sure.
Yeah.
And as far as I was talking about Debo Samuel, and I was talking about how important he was to the turnaround of the 49ers in the second half of the season. But I also think that we have to talk a little bit about what the defense has done over the second half, because the 49ers defense, since that Cardinals game when they lost 31-17, and they went on this 7-2 run, it's the defense has been driving a lot of that as well, because of what they've been able to do on their on their side of the ball. And so, you look at the defense. The key thing for me when you look at them is the most points they've given up in a game over these last 9 weeks was 24 points to
Mhm.
the Rams. Before that, it was 23. You look at you look at the number, the points that the 49ers have allowed as a team over the second half, and there was 30 up in Seattle, but 7 of that was from the special teams. There was 26 against the there was 26 against the Vikings, but 6 of that was because of a kickoff return. So, all in all, this defense has been stout, and I think so much of the turnaround for that goes to the job that Chris Kocurek has done with this defensive line, because the changes they made there when D Ford went down have spelled the whole difference with this thing.
Yeah, somebody says it's Fred Durst in a Niner hat. I get Fred Durst. I've heard Staley, I've heard Durst, and I've heard Tim
Fred,
Tebow. Like
that's
those three things I've heard for me.
Fred Durst. This is Tim Tebow. You guys didn't know. We covered this last week. That's Tim. Throws the ball left-handed and everything. You can throw,
Yeah.
throw the spiral 30 yards.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I can. That's true. But yeah, so here's the thing. First of all, the reason actually you're wrong about Debo is because PFF knows everything, Jack. And I don't know if you know this, but Trent Sherfield had a higher PFF grade than Debo Samuel did last week. So I'm just saying, Debo can't be that good, right? PFF, dude, I can't with those guys. Anyways, yes, the defense.
PFF is like that one guy that's in you go to school with, who it doesn't matter what the answer is on the test, he's going to tell you that, or he's going to tell you it's something other than what it's supposed to be. Or he's that kid that you're dealing with who, no matter what you're telling him to do, he's going to have some kind of answer back that makes you have to argue with them, right? And that's who PFF is. They're grading. Don't get me started on their grades. I don't. But that's what's funny, since I see what you did. Now you took me down a rabbit hole. But PFF, they have some cool stats over there, I guess. But even their cool stats that people like to mention sometimes are all, they have all these subjective stats, right? You're talking about big time throw. Well, just because you think it's a big time throw doesn't mean it's a big time throw. I mean, the completion from Jimmy Garoppolo to Brandon Ayuk, over the middle on one of those plays was a big time throw, just like it was the week before when Trey Lance made the same type of throw. And it's give me.
Hey, Eric's in here. Eric, it looks like you just hopped in. Rewind it and watch the love and kudos I gave you about 5 minutes ago, bud.
He said you were completely wrong about Trent Williams. That Trent Williams was awful.
Yeah, exactly.
No, okay.
No, rewind it and watch it for sure. But yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, all right. The defense, yes. And the biggest thing that happened with the defense was Armstead kicking to the inside. Like that is the one big thing that happened that really, really kind of changed the way this defensive line operated as a whole. And Armstead just wasn't getting it done as an end as far as pass rush goes, right? On a regular basis. There was a lot of arguments. PFF, again, I think said he had like 13 pressures week 1. And I'm looking at it going, I don't see anything close to that, but okay. But as soon as he kicked inside, completely different player. Like it's incredible what he's brought to the defensive line to open everything else up. Obviously, we know Bosa's great, but the defense really has been what's turned it around. And those final 9 games, they've only given up one effort where they've given up more than 91 yards rushing, team rushing. So that's extremely impressive. So the 49ers defense has had a major turnaround, and there's so many pieces that go into it, but I want to give a lot of credit to Eric Armstead for that as well. Jack's either really, really thinking or we lost him. I'm going to go with he's thinking. And I can't pull up comments. So that's a little he's just gone. I can't pull up comments, but I will read them. Oh, there he is. Okay. All right.
sorry about that. It glitched out a little bit on me over here. I was checking make sure my internet connection was
well, it's working. Funny because you were like this. You were stuck like this, and I go, well, Jack's either really, really thinking or he's frozen. And I go, I'm going to go with thinking. And then all of a sudden the next frame pops up and you're gone. I'm like, what the hell happened? Oh, he's spontaneously combusted.
That'll snapped his thumb and I was gone. I heard most of what you were saying before it cut off on me.
I was just giving love to Eric Armstead is really,
and he does. And that's one of the biggest pieces of the whole thing, right? Was they moved him down inside. He's a guy who, Grant and myself and some others have enjoyed ripping him because of the lack of production, for one, for the amount of money that he gets paid. And also when he's out there on the edge, he doesn't do a very good job. For a guy that for a guy whose strength and the reason they want to play him on the edge is because he's supposed to be a good edge setter, he doesn't set the edge very well.
No.
And with the quarterback getting outside of him as often as they do. So moving him inside has been a real boom for the 49ers defense. A couple reasons. One, he's been really good in there. And it's also gotten rid of a guy who wasn't really good in there, which was 99, Kinlaw. There's just no pass rush out of that guy. And over time, that just kills you. And he wasn't like he was really dominating in the run game either. And so Armstead's giving you that. And then you're getting more out of Arden Key, because all this shifting that they did puts Arden Key as an interior pass rusher as well, and he's doing a good job in there. Ebicom's okay on the edge. He's not great, but he's doing a good enough job at setting the edge. He's doing a better job than what Armstead was doing. And the whole thing all hinges, though, goes back to the same thing it always did, right? Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa creates all of these openings for everybody else. And you look at what the Rams, you watch the Rams film if you watch the Rams, the defensive film, if you have availability to it. I mean, the guy's getting double and triple teamed all day long. That's why you've got everybody else getting all these singles, and that's why they're getting to the quarterback, right? Because they're working on they don't have anybody there to double them. So it's just been a really good defensive effort. And then you throw in the linebacker, Fred Warner. He's played really good as the season's gone on. I think he had a little bit of a slow start, and I think the new contract made people think that it was even slower than it was. And then on the back end, they've getting Jaquaski Tart back there along with Jimmy Ward as much as they have this year has really been a big boost for them as well. And I don't know what everybody's.
I'm laughing because James says Dak Prescott drinks almond milk. I don't know why that made me laugh so hard.
Well, he might. That might be part of why he's so good, right? That might be that he might. I think that there might be something to it. So, yeah. But I think and I think those are all we kind of covered all the different bases on the defensive effort side of
For
it.
sure.
It's been much better. And let's just hit some of these super chats really quick. Carlos, thank you, Carlos. He says, how much do you trust Jimmy Garoppolo? Trust him with my kids. What are you talking about? That guy, the way he holds on to that football, I'd let him hold a newborn.
God.
Just kidding. Just kidding. No, I don't know. There's definitely I would say I don't trust him probably as much as Kyle Shanahan trusts him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I do like about him. I don't know. With Garoppolo, he's not. For me, it's more of the fact that I don't think he's nearly as bad as what 49ers fans want to say he is, and I don't think he's nearly as good as his biggest supporters say he is. I think that's kind of what's fun about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that are outright calling trash and whatever. It's like, well, define trash, because to me, like, I don't know. I know you don't like to do rankings. I have him at 17 overall. That's not trash to me. Like, you're one of the 17 best quarterbacks in the whole world. Like, that's not trash. Like, let's be clear about that. But at 17, as a franchise, you may not be actively looking to replace that guy, although the 49ers clearly are right now, or were this offseason. But if something better comes along, you're not going to pass it up, right? You're not going to not look, but you may not be like hardcore actively looking. But yeah, he does worry me. I mean, let's just be honest. Jimmy G in 45 starts with the 49ers has 46 turnovers. And when you get to the playoffs, you just can't turn the ball over. Like, you want to minimalize that. And going against Dallas, a team that will take the ball away, the most forced turnovers in the NFL, going against a guy that will throw you a couple, that's worrisome. And it's not just Dallas. It's if they get past Dallas, he's going to give the other team an opportunity. Now, will they take advantage of it? I don't know. But it's definitely a concern of mine. Yes.
Yeah, and that's a big concern when you start to look at the way that this game's going to shape up, and we'll get there in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I trust Garoppolo in that. I think he gives the 49ers the best chance of winning right now. And we'll see how it works out on Sunday. If he can get out there and not turn the ball over like he did last week, then then he's going to be good. And then we have another one here from Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy, good to see you. Good to see you back on here. Thank you very much for the donation. Jeremy says, so Jack and Jess, if the Rams don't even make the NFC Championship, will Jimmy Ward be right? I mean, Grant believes McVay was right for the quarterback change. If you remember, Jimmy Ward was saying, why did they make this change? You know, that they,
No, he was all over it. He backed up although he almost had to eat some crow there. Honestly, when some of those passes were completed against them, that's all I could think about. I'm like, oh, please win this game for Jimmy Ward right now. I do not want to hear it from Aaron Donald and any of these guys in the post game. But yeah, Stafford's a clear upgrade over what they had in Goff. Like, that's not debatable. But at the same time, when you make a trade like that, you're telling the world that that's all you need to win the Super Bowl. And so if they don't even make it to the NFC Championship, yeah, it was a waste of a trade, in my opinion. So was it a clear upgrade? And did they need an upgrade? Yes. But it still can also be the wrong trade based off of what they had to give up, the money going into it. So we'll find out. But I don't think the Rams are making the NFC Championship.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's a funny conversation because there was a lot of people, myself included, would have liked to have seen the 49ers be able to get Matthew Stafford. I felt like he would have been a good fit here. The Rams are the ones that pulled it off, and over the second half of the season, he has not looked good since that Monday night game at Levi Stadium. He's had some really bad performances. The folks down in LA, even the writers down in LA, have been talking about it, and you see that. I don't follow a lot of them, but I do follow a couple, and they've been talking about it, and you see so many people trying to step up and support Matthew Stafford. Oh, look at all the touchdowns, but I mean, come on now. You look at the second half of the season for the Rams, and they haven't won. Their wins went away. Of course, Matthew Stafford has a lot of touchdowns because the Rams don't run the ball. So how else are they going to get into the end zone other than throwing it? So, I get it to an extent, but at the same time, when it's this, this guy at least on Sunday, he played the way that everybody talked about him playing. And so, if the Rams don't make it to the NFC Championship game, Jimmy Ward is absolutely 100%, and Grant would be 100% incorrect because would, as far as this, with the McVay, right, that decision would be wrong. It would be Jimmy Ward would be correct, and that the Rams blew that move. I mean, it's good for them. They got off of the guy that didn't like, but the results need to show that it was better. And I don't care about the stats during the season. Once you get to the playoffs, it's a different story because now the stats go out the window. Now truly is all that really matters is putting a W or an L on the board. It doesn't matter if you throw for 100 yards or you throw for 400 yards. If you win and you throw for 100 yards, that's good. If you throw for 400 yards in a loss, who gives a, because nobody even has their fantasy football to play anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're right about that.
So that's that piece. And then there was a couple of questions. I did see there was a question there asking about Maurice Hurst. Maurice Hurst returned to practice today, so that's good for the 49ers. The 49ers are very healthy. Pretty much everybody is practicing now.
Tart's the only question mark, yeah, or did he get back?
Who's that?
Tart, is he the only question mark?
No, Jaquaski Tart was a limited participant today in practice.
He was. Okay, that's great. That's fantastic news.
It was a pretty good one there. And then I know we wanted to touch on this real quick. Talk a little bit about I said this. I put this topic down as credit to Kyle Shanahan, but the thing here is, look at what they did. They went out and they got Trey Lance. And that throws all kinds of a monkey wrench into a lot of organizations when you have a quarterback like this. But he set the tone from the beginning, what was going to happen there with Lance. And, it very could have easily turned into what happened over in Chicago, right? With the Andy Dalton and Justin Fields thing where, he has a path that he wants to take, but he caves in the pressure because the team isn't winning. And he changes courses, and all of a sudden it just kind of you got the inmates running the asylum in a way, and the thing just falls apart on him, and he's out of the, they end up with a losing record. The quarter coach is gone, and I don't think they would have fired Kyle Shanahan this year, but his ability to keep this team afloat throughout this, win games with Jimmy Garoppolo, at the same time making Trey Lance better, staying the course through some tough times. And the biggest thing for me with Kyle Shanahan is you go back to 2017 through now, and his teams have always played hard. I know I give him a hard time because of the fact that his teams don't score a lot of points for an offensive guru in general, right, over the course of his career. But when he's got the quarterback right, he like he has now in 2019 and 2021, it happens, and then they put points on the board, and his teams play hard. 2020 last year, they were playing hard all the way through. 2018, they played hard all the way through. And it showed up this year, and that's why they're in the playoffs, because he was able to keep his guys focused and playing. And there's just something about it. I think we there's a lot of times where we listen to Shanahan talk and we parse his words to the point where we try to make it like he's not telling us the truth. Obviously, he's not going to always tell us the truth, but I think he tells us more of the truth than we want to give him credit for.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the thing with Shanahan is like most of the stuff, really all the stuff that I question about him is still a thing. But as far as what he brings to the team from an X's and O's and a schematical standpoint, I've never questioned those things. I did wonder why it seemed like he wasn't in his bag for a big chunk of the season in the beginning, but I didn't question that he couldn't do it. You just weren't seeing it at the level that I knew he could do it. And that was a little frustrating. But overall, the one thing I want to give him credit for, and I talked about this big time throughout the season, was being a servant leader. And you didn't see those things show up, whether it be press conferences or one-on-one interviews. And then you hear former players of his dad come out and talk about the way that his dad treated players, and then you kind of get your bias confirmations in seeing the way that Shanahan talks and saying, well, he probably is the same way. And I believe that he probably is a lot like his dad. But I would like to say that as far as being a servant leader, he's really, it seemed like almost the moment that I started talking about those things, like 2 weeks later, he really started to break out and purposefully come out and say, I own this. That's on me. And I'm like, whoa, where's this coming from? We haven't heard this from you. And you would see the emotion on the sideline more often than what you were seeing before, just getting excited for his guys. And that to me was like, okay, that's good. Like I'm seeing growth. And everybody, no matter where you're at in life, no matter where you're at in your career, you can always grow and improve. And he's still young in his head coaching career. He's still a young guy, relatively speaking, when it comes to football. Now he's been around it forever. He's extremely smart, and all those things are valid, but he is growing, and seeing that growth right in front of us, I want to give him credit for that.
Yeah, I agree, and I know where you're coming from with the way that he talks about his players, and I think the reason that it's not that big of an issue for them. I understand the issues with his dad, but I think the reason that we haven't heard a big issue with Kyle Shanahan is because he says these things to the media, but he's also that way with them in the you know what I mean? He's telling them exactly. I think he tells these guys exactly where they stand, and that's a good thing in a way, right? For sure. And um, so
I think, and I agree with that. That's the one thing I do agree with is that I don't think he says anything in the media that he won't say one on one or in front of a group. It was just for me, it was like, for me, when I think of the great leaders that I've had in my lifetime or seen in my lifetime, they usually have the one thing in common, and that is chastise in private and praise in public. And I'm not saying that you can't be the other way. Like sometimes you can be. It works like Bill Belichick, right? He doesn't he'll do whatever. And so it can work. It's you have to overcome a lot to make it work for you, and you have to have the right people in place for that to work with. And obviously Shanahan has a huge hand in building this team. And so regardless of the talent, we can talk about the talent, which has been frustrating at times, that he's brought in or chosen to go with in certain situations. But the personalities, it seems like he's gotten guys that fit that personality type that are okay being coached that way.
yeah, and then I'm going to throw this one up there, and this we'll just have this kind of be the comment that leads us into our prediction for the Cowboys game, because we don't have enough time to really dig into that right now. But Johnny Dale says, Johnny Dell's Football Academy. If you don't check him out on YouTube, you should. He says this team has a 2011 Giants vibe. I don't know how old Johnny is. He's probably about your age, right? Maybe mid 30s
Yeah,
or
yeah,
early
yeah,
30s, something
yeah,
like that.
yep. Pretty sure.
So he probably wasn't around in '88, but for me, this this team reminds me of the 1988 49ers more than it does the 2011 Giants. The 1988 49ers 6-5, and then all of a sudden they get on a roll at the end of the season and win five of the they end up winning what four of the last five from that point on to win the division. They lost the last game of the season because they'd already clinched it earlier in the day, and then they roll through the playoffs. That's kind of what this team I feel like is, because it was a team that was struggling, and their offense was off, the defense was and they had some close losses that should have been wins. And when you go through that first half of the season and you compare that to 1988, those teams were very similar in the way that they were winning and losing games early in the year. So that's the way that I would go with it. I think it's more of a 1988 49ers vibe for me.
Yeah, we actually had this topic on Grant's show like 3 weeks ago. And there was that Giants team was really, really weird. Like the 49, I can see some parallels as far as how bad the 49ers were the first 8 weeks, but the last 9 weeks they've been on fire really across the board. And that Giants team really, I mean, they had a really big losing streak similar to the 49ers, but they had a lot of ups and downs. And then it was like the final 2 weeks of the regular season and the 4 games in the like they just went crazy in the playoffs. And that defense went from being really, really awful to amazing all in a
Mhm.
6 week time span. And the 49ers did that way earlier in the season. It's been about 9 weeks. They've been on fire already defensively. So that's the big difference I see.
Yeah, that's for sure. Uh, I see this as a team that's, I can understand the 2011 thing because the defensive line and the role that they're playing, right? They've gotten so much better over the second half of the year. There's a lot of
Yeah.
vibes. I think it was somebody, it might have been Grant or it was you. Somebody said that Jimmy Garoppolo was like Eli Manning, and
It
again,
was Grant.
there's your
Yeah.
2011 Giants vibe right there as well in the way that is. So, uh, no, and then real quick, this game here on Sunday, the 49ers and Cowboys. Uh, it makes it really hard to get through the work week without focusing on football 100% of the time, because this is what NFL football is all about. This is what I grew up watching. As long as I can remember, it was 49ers Cowboys in the 80s and early 90s, and then it's been 26 years since we've seen them play in the playoffs. But what's your prediction, what's your take on this game for Sunday?
I mean, matchup of the week, first of all. And yes, us 80s babies, 90s kids. Um, uh, this is what we grew up on, right? Like this is what it's all about for me. So yeah, I'm extremely happy about this matchup. I really think the Niners match up really, really well. I don't see a scenario where Dallas is going to be able to run the pill a a ton this game. The 49ers, we just talked about their run defense and how good it's been. And I think the 49ers are going to be able to run the ball. Dallas has given up some big, big rushing games this year, and their defense uh, will fold a bit in the running game. Now, the biggest thing is this 17 nothing crap that happened last week, these 3-point halves, that cannot happen because this is the number one offense. This is an opportunistic defense. And if you let this team jump out on you, it will get ugly. So make sure that I think Dallas right now, the stat I heard was 9-0 when they score first. So I'm not saying they can't score first. Like, don't freak out if that happens, but they can't jump out to a double digit lead early. If that happens, I would start to worry, even if it's 10. So the 49ers, I believe, are going to be able to run the ball. They're going to turn the ball over. But on the flip side, Dallas only has 4 games this season where they haven't turned the ball over themselves. So they'll turn it over as well. So, maybe the 49ers can get even with them. I'm putting my X factor for the whole playoff ride on Ambry Thomas. I think that kid is starting to get some swagger. He's got all the physical traits. And if he can be as good as he's been for this little run here and continue that into the playoffs, I really think the 49ers can do something special here. I think that he's the one key defensively that I'm looking at as they make this run in the playoffs. I'm confident. 8 out of 10 on the confidence meter. I think that the 49ers win this game. I'm going to go 31-24 San Francisco.
Yeah, I feel like the 49ers can win this game too. And there's a lot of the things you talked about. I don't look necessarily. I know a lot of folks will look at just like where a team ranks as far as their offense and defensive yardage, but I like to pay attention more to like the net numbers, like on the passing side, and then the yards per attempt on the rushing side. The 49ers are number one in the league in pass net yards per pass. Cowboys are number 4, but the difference is the Dallas defense is 18th against the pass in net yards per attempt. 49ers are at 10, so the Niners have the advantage there. And then you get to the yards per attempt on the ground. 49ers are only 16th, but part of the reason I think they're 16th in yards per attempt rushing is because they rush the ball so much. And there's been times this year where they've been stuck with it, like against the Rams late in that game, where they're, it's killing them in the average side. And Dallas is 23rd in yards per attempt allowed. So, and then their offense is 8th in yards per attempt, and the 49ers defense is 7th. So, I think the key here, number 1, turnovers. 49ers hold on to the ball, they're going to win. Number 2, if the 49ers stop the run, they win. If I was putting a prediction down for this game, I'm going to say if the 49ers can hold Dallas to 24 points or less, they win. I think I did that against one of our games earlier this year. I think it was the Cincinnati game. I said if the 49ers can hold them to under a certain number, they're going to win. So I say 49ers win this game if their defense holds Dallas to 24. So 27-24. Let's book that down.
Okay, so we both have Dallas scoring 24. We're right there.
Yeah, and that's the number which I think is the high that you're going to get on this 49ers defense right now with the way that they're playing all around. Unless they just completely fall on their faces, which I don't think they're going to, because you look at what the 49ers have faced in the second half of the season. I mean, you look at the game against, go through their kind of, just go through their numbers this year. They've played against the Rams. They shut down the Rams twice this year. They shut down Minnesota, who everybody was worried about. Cincinnati has the second best net passing team in the league. They held them to only 23 points. So even though they gave up a lot of yards in that game, they held on the points total. And I just think we're going to see that. The 49ers will give up yards. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are going to get their yards, but I don't think they're going to get the points. And the defense is going to be able to make a stop here or there that's going to sway for the 49ers side. The negative side here is that these guys have played against each other 7 times in the playoffs. 49ers have only won twice. The 49ers are 2-5 against the Cowboys in the playoffs, and they've only played once in Dallas, which is crazy. Of their 7 playoff games, they've only played once in Dallas, and they lost that one. So lots of things to be positive with the 49ers. There's a few negative, but I say 27. What was your number, 31?
31-24, yeah.
Yeah, so 27-24 for me, 31-24 for Jesse. Jeremy, thank you for the donation. We're going to have to shut it off. But he says, Kyle cannot run the ball 10 to 11 times in a row. Cannot. Jimmy needs to stay in a groove. I don't care if he runs the ball 20 times. If they're running the ball, keep running that thing, because Jimmy Garoppolo has shown that he doesn't have to be run. Jimmy Garoppolo showed you last week, Jeremy, that he doesn't have to be throwing the ball over the field. They ran a 20-something yard. They ran a 11-play drive. Garoppolo never threw the ball once. They come back the next drive. He drives them down, and they should have scored a touch. They should have scored before the interception. So I like you, Jeremy. Though you're a good dude. I appreciate you coming on. But we got to jump. We're going to have to end it now. I think Jesse's got some fun things that he's going to go do.
Yeah, we got over at Last Second Sports. We're gonna break down all the playoff games. Go through them all. It'll be cool to get my co-host. He's a Lions fan. Get his perspective on what he thinks from a unbiased thought of the Cowboys and the 49ers. So curious to see what he has to say. And we're just going to go through all the playoffs. That's the cool thing. It's yes, the 49ers are playing, and I'm excited, but as a football fan, we got playoffs for 3 days. This is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it should be. And just thanks to everybody for joining up. I know that Jesse's got to get over to his show, so I'm going to wrap it up real quick. Get over to Last Second Sports. Follow Jesse over there if you're not already doing it. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, subscribe. Get all the 49ers coverage here. I'm working on setting up shows for throughout the week so that this channel can be a little bit more active on a regular basis with the same guests on and everything on a regular basis. So subscribe here. Please like, comment. Get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Put that as a favorite on your taskbar. Check it out. New articles there. Just put one up today with Steve Young's thoughts on the Cowboys, and why he thinks they're going to lose, and also why what he likes about Jimmy Garoppolo heading into this game. So get yourself over there, check it out. Thank you all for joining. Have a great night. Enjoy the weekend. Lots of fun football coming your way. Take care, everybody.
Peace.